On this final episode of Season 5, join us as we sit down for another Truck Buddies episode as we discuss and reflect the year 2024 and talk about our hopes for 2025. I'm your host, Aaron Miller, pastor of equipping at Grace Baptist Church in Santa Clarita, California. Welcome to the season finale of Magnify. We figured it out.
Everybody okay?
Yeah, he left his keys in his football bag. My daughter took that car, and so he has a doctor's appointment because he blew out his knee.
Oh.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, season's over.
You know Ryan played football? He played football all 4 years of Valencia.
Yeah.
And he broke his pinky the first practice of his freshman year, just catching the ball wrong.
Noah sprained his wrist because he did, the tackling bags?
Yeah.
He wrapped his arm around and fell on it.
Who did?
My son.
Look at the kicker.
It's like, buddy, hands forward, not around the bag and then fall on it.
Well, they have to teach you now how to tackle differently.
Yeah, because
for
it's all
head,
changed up.
for head injury. So it took us like a summer to okay, where do I go? So I was in the backyard. I'm like, all right, Heidi, you stand right there.
Now you have to lead with your rear.
Yeah.
Just further proof that this
penalty.
generation's snowflakes. I mean, honestly.
I'm like, look. Okay, so Heidi was there, and I'm like, all right, so full pads, we were ready to go.
And you put Heidi up to be tackled? You thought that was the right call?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, she's tougher than you think. First time I did it, I sprained my pinky, but,
I played football freshman year. All the Castaic kids came to Valencia the first time. So we had all the Castaic kids come to Valencia my freshman year. But all the Castaic kids were just brutes, and they played football hard, and we didn't really know how to do that. So I remember the first practice, they were putting their socks over their cleats, things I've never seen that I'm like, this must be insider,
is that a prison thing?
Crazy football. And then they were spearing each other for fun, just cracking each other's heads. And I just remember we all, I don't know what it was called, you all huddle around and the coach says, you two go, and you just crack.
Yeah.
Just concussing one another.
Is that when you chose to do tennis that day?
It was
We're
after
drawing.
that year, I'm like, I'm done.
No, thank you.
I don't like being yelled at. I don't like my face being pulled.
Yeah.
I get motivated different ways.
I didn't realize that my children were motivated differently. Because you have this early thing as a parent that all your kids, because, they're from the same gene pool, that you're like, oh, well, this is what it means in our home and everybody will adapt and everybody will fall into place. And you're like, oh, this strategy. And it was my second where I was like, oh, wait a minute. I tried the same thing that I tried on my first and this is not working with you. And then that's when Heidi, she does this a lot. She just kind of, could you come here for a minute, Joe? I don't think this is working. I'm like, oh, okay. Great.
Well, guys, thanks for being here today. This is the final episode of Season 6.
Yeah.
Season 5.
Season 5.
You can start over.
As Cam said, or we just leave it in. What's with everyone wanting to edit out mistakes? We are human, and we make mistakes, and people know this.
Not a Grace Baptist.
We're on a hot streak right now. It's it's cool to be authentic, to not know what season we're in. It's cool. It's cool to not know how many episodes we've done.
We are so meta.
That's right.
We don't even have starts or ends. Yeah. So I thought we'd sit down as a grouping of truck buddies. We don't have Ryan with us. Alan's also busy. So it's just Jared, Joe, Dave, and I.
Really the core, though.
The cab is full.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
The source of all creativity and power.
Like I've been saying for years, do we need Ryan?
I do like the ongoing thing that happens unintentionally, but yet consistently, is that we always end up kind of forgetting about Ryan.
Oh, that's true. Even when he's in the room.
we'll be
Where's
doing
Ryan?
introductions at something, and we're like, da-da-da. They're like, oh, and Ryan. Oh, man, I forgot about Ryan.
Well, what makes it worse is that people remember, so it's say all the names, pause, and then see Ryan and go, oh, and also Ryan.
I think I have publicly forgotten him probably maybe 5 times.
And he's probably the one on staff that you've known the longest.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very, it's not intentional by any means. But
and is the nicest pastor on staff.
No, that's
unquestionably.
No, he's good for it.
Yeah.
That's the best part about it, is that you end up doing the one person that you feel the worst about missing is Ryan. And
I can't remember the context. Someone attributed something that Ryan did, but attributed it to Peter. And Ryan didn't correct it. He just sat there and goes, just smiled. Like, good on you, man.
Oh,
I did.
Where I would have been like first in line, no, hold the phone. I did that.
It is true. He's probably one of the most unpretentious people that I know. He's just really sweet that way. So.
No, guys, I thought it'd be good to go around and just kind of talk about end of year, kind of what we're thankful for, especially the timing of the drop of this podcast will be, near the end of November around Thanksgiving. So what are we thankful for the year 2024? And then turn it around and talk about 2025. What are we hopeful for? I'll start with you, Jared.
I feel like when we go to a restaurant and I want to order last so I can hear what everybody else said.
No, I wrote down an order. And I stick to it.
It's been a fun year. We got Destiny last year in 23. Just been so fun to watch her grow up, watch her take her first steps this last week. I'm just really enjoying my kids. Not that I haven't before, but I feel like almost every night we're just having a lot of fun. It's fun to watch their personalities come out. Andy started playing soccer this year. It's fun to watch him. Just there's a lot of things that he really loves. And so it's fun to, like when your kids actually enjoy stuff, not just because you're buying it for them, because they actually like it. That's been really fun.
Are you able to share an update with Destiny? Or
Yeah, we had court last week and got to take a big step forward for adoption. So still have probably 8 to 12 months to finalize the process, but kind of took one of the biggest steps that you can take kind of in that process, which has been great.
By the way, I've always wondered in the emotional roller coaster on it. I was talking to a friend of mine who is in town who they were just fostering their first, and they were just beginning to say, how does their heart attach? But yet there are so many unknowns. And how do you care for a child who's in your home? How do you and Janelle, when you guys go to, because you do it really well, like as we've talked about in the hallways, like, hey, here's the thing, and this could change or that could change, which is a lot of flexibility. How do you get into that headspace to where you're able to be so flexible with something that is like so emotionally weighty?
Yeah. I don't know. I have a good answer for that. I mean, the first couple that we reunified were really hard. It's been interesting. The reunifications have been different for Janelle and I. So there's been some that have been harder on her and some that were harder on me.
Right.
So I think part of it is like just settling into this is our kid. It's also not our kid yet. It's just kind of a weird tension in that. And I think it takes a while to kind of get the feel of that. And different people are better at that. So I know people who fostered one and I was like, I can't do this again. I know people that have fostered way more than we have and given others back.
So you're really thankful for just what the Lord has been giving you and Janelle, time with the kids.
Time with the kids. She changed jobs and that's given us more time as a family. So yeah, I just feel like we're in a good place. I'm thankful for that. There's not anything new. I think for the first time in a long time, there's no big new things on the horizon, which is great. So now I'll just kind of, do this until I die.
Basically,
yeah.
You're never turning that one off.
That's it.
You're a dad.
Yeah, next year. I mean, I think as we continue to launch new grace groups, I'm really excited about that. We just had a training on Sunday for 5 groups that are going to adopt kind of our neighboring integration into grace groups. So had really good conversations with them, hoping to do some more of that in the spring. Excited to send a team, Lord willing, a go team to a place that we've not sent before. And I'm just thankful. I feel like, again, nothing real new, but just solid, faithful people at every level that we're doing ministry. So I would say this last year and then looking ahead, there's just kind of a settledness, kind of a contented settledness that I feel in life. I'm excited about what God's doing in our family and looking ahead. Not expecting any big milestones. You never know what God's going to do, but
I bet it's rewarding to think back to even when you began your thesis.
Yeah.
And writing your project for your doctorate, seeing it come together, take on flesh.
Yeah, we got a pizza oven this last year and kind of locked in making good pizza.
Yeah, you did.
By the way, because I did pizza for the first time, when you make pizza, do you, like at our house, we just ended up grazing? So we just put it out and then we would just graze. Or do you make how can you make a bunch of pizzas in a row and then do you serve as one or do you?
I do it all at once. Yeah, we were doing the grazing thing, but we watch a movie when we do it. So it's kind of like a defined start period. So I fire 3 and then we start eating.
And then you just keep it warm in the oven or just kind of just normal pizza stuff?
I make the one that I want to eat the most last, so then mine's hot and everybody else can kind of figure it out.
Every Friday.
So I need to figure that out.
Yeah.
Pizza day.
Yeah. Discipleship has many forms. Jared was helping me with my first round. But I did not have a very good leoparding.
What did you say you bought?
I bought the Uni 12-inch.
There you go.
Yeah.
And like I told you,
Facebook Marketplace.
for the whole world to hear, if you're not doing this, put MSG on your pizza.
I told that to Heidi. I was at a thing and I said, yeah, Pastor Jared said to put MSG on our stuff. And then everybody looked at me like, isn't MSG supposed to like make you grow a third eye or something?
No, it's
like that?
delicious. MSG is delicious.
MSG naturally occurs in food. There was a whole anti-Asian blowback in a season about why MSG was bad, but none of that's true. It doesn't cause you to get puffy or anything like that. It's a naturally occurring compound that just kind of increases the umami of your food. And when you start using it, it's not like it's more salty or more this. It just tastes better.
No kidding. And it doesn't like ruin your kidneys.
No.
All right.
No. Who was it that like broke that for me? The chef. He passed away, but...
Bourdain?
Oh, yeah. Anthony Bourdain totally opened up
David Chang's big on MSG.
really?
Yeah, he busted the whole myth. And he was like, no, the center of this is racism. Has nothing to do with
Oh,
MSG.
are you serious?
Yep. He said,
No.
MSG is delicious. It's
I just
really
bought a
great.
pound of it.
Yeah.
I have a pound of MSG.
Where does one buy MSG nowadays?
There's a guy who's got a van down in Newhall.
Stop it.
Yeah.
MSG?
It's a brick. It's a white powder brick. No, I got it on Amazon.
Really?
Mhm.
Just buying it?
Yep.
And there isn't like any sort of California law that prohibits buying MSG?
I'm sure
Well,
there
Gavin
is.
Newsom did show up at my house and like he nailed something to my door, but whatever.
So, sometimes that happens. You're like, yeah, sorry, you can't buy that here. Like, you know. All right, MSG. I gotta give it a go.
Yeah. That's a great pivot. Actually, you're next, Joe.
Oh, great.
What are you thankful for?
What's the MSG of your life right now, Joe?
The flavoring that's elevating my profile of life, deliciousness.
Yeah.
Let me see.
2024.
And this is going to sound really silly, but I'm very, very thankful for this church. I mean,
That
just
does sound so silly. Can we cut that? Let's get that out of there. That's ridiculous.
Next on the Magnify podcast, I think the Magnify is pretty great.
The listeners are like, oh, really?
Oh,
the four pastors are thankful for the church?
Wow, yeah. Geez.
Would you say you're thankful for the Psalms too, Joe?
I know, right? Are you thankful for puppies and for sunsets? I feel like it sounds silly, but we talk to enough pastors that we know that we've ran with that are in other places that the work of pastoral ministry and the work of the people of God in my heart at times in other places don't align. Meaning that there are a lot of guys that are in pastoral ministry where they're doing pastoral ministry and the development of their own heart is because of the labor of the work that they're not able to be recipients of the vocational labor and fruit that the seeds that they're sowing. And
Sure.
I just think that this last year in particular, it just was very evident to me how the folks in our ABF to the XYZers to the grounds crew.
Aaron and Jared and Dave.
Yeah, seriously. No, but I'm just saying it's like, it just seemed as though that there was another expression, like random afternoon being invited over to somebody's house, at the last minute, to just a very normal expression of the one another's that I think my heart was just more aware of and more thankful for, just evidences of the people and the ministries of Grace Baptist Church, either that I was either the direct recipient of or that I was seeing the blessing of the people of Grace Baptist and the ministries ministering to other people of whom I either care for or I was concerned for.
So you're saying that's a marked difference this past year than the past years you've been here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just think that the expressions of them, the diversity of it, the richness of it. I mean, certainly I think Noah, my son Noah, who was baptized, I think is a great example of that. That his testimony that he gave was essentially the testimony of Grace Baptist Church and the investment of people in different places and in different seasons investing in him that was yielding spiritual fruit, and that we were celebrating that on an all family Sunday. And it just, it's those kind of moments where you take a step back for a minute and go, man, I think the ways in which that the Lord is moving my heart in maturity and in depth of holiness because of the work that he's doing among the people at Grace Baptist Church. Now, it's not to say that those other things haven't been evident since I've been here, but I think that the leadership adrenaline that kind of hits your first season when you jump into a church at a pastoral level, that you're not able to see the trees for the forest. And I just think that this year kind of marks that for me, where I go, oh yeah, like what Jared's saying, I think I'm borrowing even, or just experiencing even what he's experiencing in terms of just that there's with clarity and contentment, gives you the ability to see and to taste things in ways that maybe you haven't seen.
And
that
wouldn't you
before.
say it takes about 5 years?
Yeah, it does take 5 years, Aaron. First year, you just experience things. The second year, you try some things. The third year, you change the things that you tried that didn't work, and then your fourth year, you kind of feel at home. And
where I got that from was an old professor I had who was blind, actually.
Was he really?
And he was the first blind African-American in the state of North Carolina to get a doctorate. He's the one. His name was Logan Carson, Dr. Carson. And he told me, he said, listen, whatever church you start serving, I was 18 at the time. He said, for the first 5 years, Mr. Miller, you're their boy. And I said, oh. He said, but by year 5, it starts to take maturity and you begin to have kind of history and you begin to create off of that history with relationship. And I thought, that's interesting. And this is my 4th church that I've served at since then. And true to form, it's like, I feel like it takes about 5 years to start feeling like, oh, I got my groove, I got my rhythm. And then, of course, it progresses in different ways beyond that. But
so will year 5 be the year you stop yelling at Dave and I? Is that one of the things you picked up?
Exactly. I think looking ahead is just the continued trajectory for what's happening with the one another's and how that language, I'm starting to hear that language more and more in just kind of ordinary or echoes or from somebody.
Yeah.
And I've been really encouraged by that.
I'll go next. Really thankful for this past year as I think about it. Really thankful for Ingrid, my wife. We celebrated 21 years this past May, and then having sabbatical was just really precious time to have time with her without any interruption. We were gone for a long time, for 9-10 weeks together, traveling around, and that just gave us plenty of opportunity to touch base on a few things that, because you didn't have the time or even the mental clarity on a few things to have those discussions, we were able to do that, and just really thankful for her and her friendship and her support. Our wives don't necessarily know, kind of like us, they don't know what they're signing up for when they marry a pastor. When we got into ministry, we were very young. I was 19, she was 18, and she was traveling with me to do part-time youth ministry and youth camp speaking, and you're just off to the races, and there's no time to really calibrate or equalizing your mind, kind of what are we doing? Because we were still teenagers ourselves, and there was just this assumption that, okay, to do local church ministry, you take this path, and she just, without questioning anything, just hopped right in and went with me. And I'm very thankful for that. Ministry is such a blessing, but we know it's hard too at times.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of people's lives and you're living according to expectations. Certainly there's like with any path that one walks, there's seasons of friction and then there's seasons of tremendous blessing. I think the assumption going into it at a young age was that, it's ministry and I'm working with Christians. And so you kind of put some rose-tinted glasses on thinking in certain categories, only to kind of be a little shocked and dismayed that Christians are not always kind and loving. And yet the Lord chooses to work through the church and through his people. And so anyway, I'm just thankful for my wife.
If I can ask a question, when we were at the pastor's retreat and we were having breakfast together with Heidi and I and you and Ingrid and Alan and Anna were there too. But as we were talking about it, she had mentioned that. She says, that we just kind of jumped in and grew up in those things. But I haven't asked you this question. If you were to get in a DeLorean and to be able to speak to you when you were coming in, that kind of maybe a couple of orienting principles or thoughts that you feel like would shape or would be of help to you back in those days, what would you say? Now, again, I understand that, hey,
sure,
that the things that you walked through make you who you are today, and that's why you think, like, I get that. But if you were to be able to do that, what is one of those things?
I'll lean to the hypothetical. I would not have started at 19. I jumped right into youth ministry, and like you said, I mean, you really... You can't go back and change these things because God used these experiences. But I probably would not have, knowing my personality, my makeup, I would not have jumped into youth ministry, though I loved it. There were just aspects of youth ministry that I that didn't cater to my strengths, and so it created a lot of friction at times. I would have taken a different path, but again, I didn't know. It's not. I'm a first generation pastor. It's not like I wasn't listening to counsel. I wasn't not seeking it. I was seeking it, but everyone told me one thing: oh, you go into youth ministry. From youth ministry, you flourish and grow into other areas of church life. But I would start a little later. I'm happy that I started young, but I probably would have waited till at least had a year of marriage. You know,
I get that.
I think with that time, it would have allowed me to really slow down, because slow is fast in this world, right? Slow down and engage people more. I was only focused on preaching, which is good, right? I feel like God has created me to do that. He's gifted me to do that. But I didn't understand, nor was I encouraged to engage people. So no one discipled me. And so with that time, if I were to start later, like no one said, here, let me take you under my wing, so to speak, and just kind of model and teach you the life of Christ. People did model the life of Christ, but it was all indirectly.
But it was just deep into the pool and trying to orient yourself, trying to figure out how to kind of stay afloat. And yet you knew that you were supposed to be swimming in the pool, right? You know, just going, hey, you know what? I probably could have taken the stairs.
I wrongly just assumed, oh, all I do is preach. And I didn't engage the other aspects of the body. So that would be that.
I hear that.
What I'm hopeful for, so I'm again, to sum up, I'm thankful that my wife, she still loves me. She still is along for the ride. And anyway, her and I were reflecting on that last night. So that's on my mind. What I'm really hopeful for looking into 2025, I can't believe I'm saying 2025. That just
seriously
is crazy
it's like
to me.
Buck Rogers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, I thought we were going to be like in spaceships.
For those of us that aren't in our 60s, can you explain Buck Rogers?
Buck Rogers in the 21st century.
I'm looking it up right now.
Are you being serious?
Yeah. Google it.
It was like,
give it the Google.
Try and find out what year Buck Rogers was. I think it was around. I literally think it was 2025.
1938. Wow, that's when we started.
Yeah, it was a deal. I actually had a Buck Rogers lunch pail. Now that we're talking about it, so just
and you would carry this uphill both ways, right?
Oh, please.
1975.
1975.
Buck Rogers in the
21st century, right?
Well, I guess it changes. The 25th century was one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 25th
Yeah, Buck
century.
Rogers. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah.
Sounds like it's time for a reboot and an origin story.
Yeah, but yeah.
It looks just like Star Wars.
It sounds like Buck Rogers.
C-3PO.
Which that was the time.
It was like Buck Rogers, Battlestar Galactica, Flash Gordon, the movie came out, which was really cool. Anyway.
What I'm hoping for in 2025.
Gosh.
Let's bring it back.
Excuse me.
Bring it back.
Sorry.
I'm looking forward to taking a few things that I don't want to do a deep dive on, but seeing how they begin to kind of morph and develop in ministry. Like Magnify being one of them, okay? In terms of like, what's next? How can we continue to encourage and resource our people with this particular venue? You already mentioned one, Jared. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing the Grace Group movement, the one anotherings that Joe mentioned. These begin to kind of take form and add to a solid base of culture that we've been working on for a number of years. And I think there is something to that, like year 5. And Joe, it really does come down to your person. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. But when you brought organizing power and kind of mobilizing power to our team, we're in year 5, and we have our rhythm, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
So how it's going to manifest itself with different cultural pieces in our church, grace groups, one anotherings, everything that David Foglesong touches.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's one thing to be able to throw a great fastball. It's another thing to have a really great catcher who can take it and catch it. And so I think that there are just so many different things that there are these great fastballs, and to kind of complete all of those things, I think all the pieces are there.
Right.
And they always have been there. It's just being able to put them into places and to give opportunities. I think what's been really cool is watching, I just go, hey, just open up the engines a little bit. Let's see how fast this thing could go.
In my mind, I'm thinking of Maverick, and he's trying to go to 10.8. We're like, we can do it. We can do it.
It is a lot like that. And I think, and you guys all remember too, it's like there were a couple of years ago where we're like, oh man, like it was like, remember that one, it was like 3 months where we had like 9 conferences. Remember that?
Oh,
that was one of those things where Or you just go, yeah, I think we went. I think we went a little too fast on that.
I think we're tired.
Yeah, but
Zombieville.
it's been cool to see you go, hey, listen, if you put a couple more plates on the bar, let's see if you can lift it. And I just think that you guys, and I think the people too, have just kind of have really enjoyed kind of stretching that out a little bit and then reframing to go, yeah.
So I don't know
let's kind of
exactly where these developments will be seen. It's kind of like a surprise, but like we're just kind of, we got a rhythm, I feel. So anyway, Dave, I'll kick it to you, man.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm sitting here listening to you guys speak so eloquently without any notes, and I'm like have all my notes in front of me.
Eloquently.
I mean, you send out like every now and then you send out stuff, and Joe, you do it really well too, that I get to like process beforehand. So I really appreciate that. But what I'm thankful for, usually as I approach December when I was hired here, I just kind of think about how did I get here? That's usually like kind of happens once a year. How did I get here? And so I think about all the things that God had to do behind the scenes to get me to where I am now. And a lot of the situations that I pushed against God that I thought this was better for me. And then he didn't let me have that. I was working in LA at a firm and I wanted the job so bad. And I was like, I'm willing to drive 4 hours a day to get this thing. Like I didn't get the job and I was so bummed. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. One of the designers there, he was a senior designer. He said, I already know you didn't get the job. And this is before the art director told me I didn't get the job. So he pulled me aside. He's like, I know you didn't get the job. However, I'm going to give you the best products that come into this firm to give to you because I want to set you up well as you exit for your portfolio. And I was like, how did the Lord orchestrate that for my good? And then, didn't get the job, worked at another place in town, and then ended up here. And all the things I thought I wanted that the Lord didn't give to me, it just reminded me of like Romans 8, that God is for me, he's not against me. God's providence in my life, his provision for me is always good. And yeah, as every year as I approach December, I'm like, in the midst of all the ministry stuff we have going on, like Christmas concerts or fall festival, the conferences coming up in 2025, I'm grateful for what the Lord is doing behind the scenes for me. The other one is just my health. This year was just a rough time for my health in a lot of instances. Last year was my eyeball where I almost lost some eyesight in my eye. This year was another just hard, medical situation. And the Lord just seems to body check me every now and then. Like, you're human, right?
I really do appreciate how thoughtful you are about what's in your world and what's happened in the past. And as you think about it, and your team thinks really intentionally about things. I am curious. I think Aaron was asking too, like, what is the future? What are some of the things that you kind of can forecast about, what's happening?
Yeah, I think the amount of content that I can even say staff, like it goes from, I'm really thankful for our staff team. I love working here on staff and with everybody who's here. I love our senior staff team. I think, Joe, you've done a great job of blending us together really well. And I think even some of the retreats we've had, like they've just been really meaningful and thoughtful, and we've bonded really well. As I look forward to this year, I think the staff are creating so much content that we're always looking like, how are we going to distribute this to our church family and our community in a way where they can consume it easily. And, we think about that all the time. So even in the midst of all the production schedules, we're always thinking about how are people going to hear this and what's going to be helpful for them to know and hear. I think one of the things that I can talk about is just the desire to find the makers here at Grace Baptist Church.
Yes.
I think there's a large community of young and old who love to make and who love to make for, some personal stuff, but they love to have an avenue to make here at Grace Baptist. And I just remember I was trying to take myself back to student ministry when I was here in student ministries. And I remember one of the pastors, he was like, hey, do you want to like design our conference logo? And I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember being afraid and excited at the same time. And I really want to give that opportunities to kids who are, who draw or they design or they make certain things, that there can be a place for you, for our people, for you to benefit the Grace family with it in whatever avenue. So that's on my trajectory for 2025. And usually November allows me time just to be able to like really strategize. Yeah. And so that's what I'm looking forward to.
By the way, I do want to highlight that Buck Rogers was accidentally time warped from 1987 to the year 2491. So,
So
24
nowhere close.
No, but I thought 24, and it literally did. In my 7-year-old self, I remember 24. I thought it was 2024, but it was actually 2491.
Wow, they really went to the future.
Just,
Flying cars, isn't that also known as a airplane?
Well, Aaron, I think when we see what's going on in the Holy Land, I'm pretty confident that within our lifetime, Nikolai Carpathia is going to come out of the east, okay? There's going to be a lot of deception.
Oh, man.
I think the deserts around Tel Megiddo are going to be transformed into crops.
You really did read the entire series, didn't you?
Are you kidding me?
Who didn't?
Me.
Oh.
Well, you know what? I never wanted to say this,
I read
but
some
it
of
shows.
the books. I didn't read the
shows.
entire series.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, guys, okay, so we're thinking 2025 already. I know we're still in 2024. We have Thanksgiving to get through and Christmas and New Year's and all that.
To get through.
Well, sometimes.
Then we got to get through
No,
Thanksgiving.
I don't
and
mean
Christmas.
to be a
All
downer.
right, kids, come on. Let's open your presents
Come
so Daddy
on,
can get through
Well,
this.
let's be honest.
Can we get through this, please?
Let's speak on behalf of our brother Ryan Foglesong, in case you were wondering who that is.
But you have a brother?
It's a crazy season for his team. And you, Dave.
Yeah, Cam and Sarah always have like a holiday twitch, is what I call it. So like they're like twitching all the way through Christmas.
But doesn't it really go from Christmas, Easter's not far, and then summer adventure already? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we had a
It's
summer
just like
adventure meeting 2 weeks
plowing.
ago and 2 conference meetings for
Yeah.
2025. So we're already like past Christmas in a lot of ways.
That's crazy.
It really is interesting. What I have noticed is that everybody naturally in the rhythm of conversation around campus is everybody always skips a season. So right now everybody's talking about the spring.
January and February.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, everybody's already
Well,
talking
you
about
got to
spring.
stay ahead.
Yeah.
You got to be thinking on that horizon.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Pastor Jared here. The Grace Baptist family had the opportunity to bring food bags to the families at Golden Valley High School. We're so excited to continue partnering with them, as well as helping meet the needs within our own Grace family. We truly appreciate receiving ongoing donations to our food pantry. And for a list of items that are needed, you can visit gracebaptist.org/food pantry. Thank you for your generosity as we minister to our church family and those in the community.
A little bit of a pivot here. How many members meetings do we have scheduled for 2025? 3?
3.
As you're thinking through the development of each meeting, what are some of the things that you find to be helpful for the people in terms of content and in terms of even the timing in which we have those meetings?
Yeah, I mean, I really do look to Jared. I think that Jared and I at one point.
Oh, that's true, because
Again-
Jared, you're over members.
Yeah, 'cause
membership.
And I look to you.
Yeah,
You look to Dave.
It's like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, my bad.
Jared and I were kind of talking about it, and we kind of looked at each other like, yeah, let's do it. And we just started putting some things together, and as a team, we were talking about it, and it just made sense that there would be a beginning, a middle, and a conclusion to a ministry year. So as we talk through the ministry year, and everybody, and in Southern California, you have to create seasons.
Right.
Or else you go mad because everything is just another Sunday, another Sunday, another Sunday. And you just have to create these moments where different seasons create different kind of rhythms and feels. So
Did anyone grow up in a church environment where members meetings was as intentional as I think we make it?
No.
We had members meetings, but not with this level of intentionality that we put behind it.
I mean, I've seen it modeled, but I haven't participated.
I've seen it
as a
modeled,
member.
correct. But
Yeah.
I've not participated in a church. Okay, Jared, I'll look to you. What do you think in terms of balance? A typical meeting, what we want our people to experience and engage with. What are some of those elements? I think we always try to just create, honestly, it's just a good time for people to be together. Like we want that to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's the foundational win. So you and I do a
relational.
leadership fellowship gathering of ABF and Grace Group leaders kind of once a month. And for me, as we hammer out agenda for those,
Mhm.
I think the big benefit is just getting discipleship leaders in a room on a regular basis. I think that's true for
Yes,
our members.
just getting
right?
people together.
So not that we don't put a lot of thought and intentionality into the agenda, but I think it's just great for the core of Grace Baptist Church to be together, even from an encouragement standpoint, to look around
Right.
and go, man, it's cool to see the multi-generationality there, the multicultural quality, people from all different walks of life. So I think just by virtue of us getting in the same room, we've already got a significant win. I think the categories that we think in are inside baseball updates. So what are some things that are going on that just by virtue of you being the core of Grace Baptist Church, either we can talk more about than we have in public, or we can kind of talk about for the first time? Because I think that just continues to invite people in. The divide we want to keep breaking down, which I think is really natural in a large church, is that people give to us, they serve us, right? That they're working for the leadership. And I think the member meetings give us a chance to go, no, this is collectively what we're doing. Correct. So this is not you giving us your money and then we kind of decide where it goes. Yeah. This is not you giving your service hours. This is what God has called our church family to do, even though we have different roles in that. So I think we can reinforce that even as we kind of forecast some things.
What are some important aspects, or what are some important pieces of information or content that help people with that awareness, do you think? Like, for example, I know that you curate a lot of helpful data, for those meetings. What in addition, like what are some of the data that we bring? Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I mean, how much we've given, how much.
I mean, I think
how many members came in the year before.
Yeah.
Okay.
It literally is, in all intent and purposes, a family meeting. That it really is bringing everybody together and just saying, hey, listen, these are the things that we want collectively to recognize. It's not that you create new things at a member meeting as much as saying, hey, I want you to be able to see what is happening in the whole, and then also to invite, like what Jared's saying, that's very participatory in terms of like, hey, let's think together about these things. And the way that you do that is by equipping them, by saying, hey, listen, here's some of the details of what's happening that might not go into a Grace Weekly, but the kind of information that's really helpful, because I think it's important that the members are, again, I think that they're just well equipped to be a part. And the way that you're well equipped is by having as much relevant context as possible. So
and then inviting them to pray, to engage with it.
Yeah. So I think as you think about it, it's like it really does have all those components where you're giving updates that you want to give a context for the members, so that when we're communicating other things or decisions are being made, that the membership is able to understand the why.
Yeah, right.
Because sometimes data ends up being just the what we're doing.
Sure.
But the membership meeting reminds us and informs us on the why.
I had a young man recently ask me, what doesn't make a members meeting? Like, are there things that you decide intentionally not to bring forth to a members meeting? I said, absolutely. And I don't think he expected me to be that emphatic with that. I said, brother, what you have to understand is that many times information that the pastors and elders are holding is not ready for a release because we're still working through it as leaders. And it would be premature to put something out there where we're not even decided upon whatever it is, and that's just a simple example. But like, what would be some other things that like sometimes we don't have the time?
It's interesting. I think there is a really sweet spot to the member meeting because it is its own space, because there are certain things that you can talk about at a member meeting or experience in a member meeting that you can't experience on a Sunday morning because of the constituency that's there. Sometimes we might have guests or unbelievers or just the span of the amount of people that are there at different levels of their faith, as well as different levels of their commitment to membership. That the membership meeting says, wait a minute, we've all signed a covenant together. That we all know what the rules of engagement are. We all know what we've promised to each other. So therefore, what you can speak about in that meeting leverages in and leans in on that. The sweet spot is if you use a cooking analogy, that the membership meeting is having a dialogue that isn't like fully cooked and you just eat it, right? It's like, hey, it's already been prepared. Here it is. But it also isn't just the raw ingredients, but that it's actually saying, hey, here's some raw ingredients, but this is how we would want to present that or put this together. Would that taste good? Does that resonate with you? And to be able to engage at that level, it's more participatory. Yeah. So some of the things that would never be appropriate is something that would be sharing somebody's story that is not invited by the person who has that story. So it's just, I think that in the end that we really are we're the beholders of, and we are the caregivers of people's stories.
Sure. Like a perfect example of that was, without mentioning names, someone who recently lost a spouse, and we had discussed many times, hey, what if we update our people on who has gone home to be with the Lord, and certain things like that. And this was someone who did not want that shared. And so you had to, in order to care for that person, you really had to walk that. That's just one example. Yeah. Like what stories qualify, what don't. It really depends on the person and the content.
So I would say the only things that really are prohibitive in a member meeting are things that it would be unproductive to have a conversation at such a large level on something that has a level of nuance that would require more nuanced conversation. But in the end, you don't know that until you experience it. So I think that there is a joy in a little bit of unscriptedness to the member meeting, to where you're able to really to be together and to belong, and to hear feedback, so that it's both organized, but yet it allows for organic expressions of dialogue and conversation. So in the end, I think, in answering your question, Aaron, is that there isn't a rubric for what would be allowed or what wouldn't be allowed, apart from what is it that is going to bless the Grace family? What is it something that's going to enrich them and help them to grow into Christ-likeness and fulfill their membership covenant? Anything in that zone, then you could be able to share that. And there are some facts or things that might apply in one context and not apply in another.
Well, people are always going to walk into an environment like that with expectations that are all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Some people would consider a successful members meeting to be one thing, while others would consider to be another. So what would you say, Jared, in terms of what are some unhelpful expectations that maybe people would have about a members meeting that we would want to maybe help them redirect that thinking and expectation?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the members meeting is us reporting to our board. And I think sometimes there's an expectation of that, or even other churches have experienced that, where we just bring report after report after report to a voting body.
Sure. Whereas people might find that to be an expectation that they have.
Right.
And it's like, no,
so
we want to
provide
release
updates, but it's not merely a reporting structure. This is probably a bad analogy, but I think in some ways I liken it to what a date night with my wife is supposed to be. Like, we're going to do stuff throughout the week. We're going to change 20 diapers a day. We're going to run the sprinklers, pay the bills. Date night isn't another logistics time. It's a time for us to reconnect relationally and to enjoy being together that facilitates the stuff we do the rest of the week, right? I think in some ways, members meetings, it's that we're going to continue to do ministry week in and week out. And there's some things that we need to talk about, right? We need to have calendar talks and finance talks, and there's some other things that need to be discussed. But it's not primarily logistical, right? There really is a component for us to get back and go, what's the best part of being here? What is it that keeps us together, that allows us for the other, the in-between, the 3 months in between our member meetings, that allows us to continue to be faithful? Certainly it's going to enact itself in logistics and programs and ministries. But the core of that is not essentially what we do. It's antecedent to that. It's our identity as those who belong to Christ and to each other. And so I think there's stories and vision components that we can kind of recapture. So I think that's the balance we're always trying to strike, right? Well, what are logistical things that would be helpful and necessary for us to rehearse with you that we can't on Sunday, or we just won't on Sunday?
Right.
But then what are some aspects of what it means to belong to Christ and to each other, and to belong to this body in this town with our mission statement, where we can kind of together call each other back to what it means to be a faithful Christ follower here, and then to ask for God's help and mercy in that. And I think sometimes we're going to lean more heavily. We have to lean more heavily on reports and logistics. But I think the real benefit of members meetings is that we get to remind ourselves together of just the beauty of belonging to each other.
Yeah, and that reminder, just coming together, reminds me, Dave, of something that you've always highlighted and emphasized for me and for our team, the beauty of being local. Right? The beauty of being a church that is here in this town, for this town. There's something about the local church when it gathers, yes, in worship, right? Our corporate gathering, but then also gathers in different forms. It could be a prayer meeting. It could be a members meeting. It just kind of exercises for us that we're here for a purpose. We're not here just to enjoy a creaturely lifestyle, and the church helps us have a good time in this town. Like we're actually here for the mission of God. And a members meeting, no matter what the agenda, always reminds me of that, because you get a little sampling of our town anytime we have a gathering.
It's a good recalibration time because I think as we go through our normal weeks of family time, or we do ministry, or we're out doing our normal kind of everyday life things. Members meeting really helps me recalibrate that, like, we're actually in this together.
Yeah.
And I was just like rehearsing in my mind that it is a time where I probably hear the most first and last names called out from like a stage where we're like calling like members' names because it's family time. It really is. We do it a couple times on Sunday morning. But like members, like we're actually hearing like people's names, and it feels very familial,
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of laughing, there's prayer times, like there's sharing, things that we're going through, and it's really a beautiful time. Yes, we talk about logistics sometimes, or maybe some things are more information heavy.
And I appreciate that it's not a solemn gathering, right? There's a solemnity to what we do, but I mean, I said this before. I think one of the things I love about Grace is I can be myself here, right? I don't have to be like a separate kind of pastor. And I like to laugh. And I think there's a lot of times when we come together, there's a lot of laughter going on. And that's not wasted time because we're demonstrating that we actually enjoy being together. And we're going to get a lot of work done. We're going to talk about some things that are very serious. We take the gospel and ministry very seriously. But I think even member meetings continue to paint a portrait of faithfulness doesn't require some kind of artificial austerity. That it's possible both to enjoy people and to be really serious about the mission of Christ. We can kind of model both of those together.
Yeah. What was that word again? Those two words? Solemn austerity. I don't know.
I really
Jesus.
Yeah, it was.
I'm like writing that down. That was a good 2 words.
The feedback that we're getting from the member meetings are just like, man, that felt other than a meeting.
Yeah.
It really was more like a moment.
Right. And it goes back to what Jared was saying, that really is family. Like we consider to be a family. We're going to treat it like a family, right?
But it's worth their time too.
Totally.
Because I think everybody's like, hey, I want this to be useful. I want it to be functional.
Totally.
And so it is. And there are those things that are there. It's not just, hey, we're all hanging around, making s'mores.
But we're not
like,
cogs in the wheel, nor is it cold robotics. We are wanting to platform opportunities to enjoy being together, and that's fine. Now, does it need to be a balance? Definitely needs to be a balance. Like, we want to be profitable with the time. But like every family meal is different. This is going to be different depending on the season we're in and what's going on.
Our last member meeting, we did something and we got some feedback. And they were like, that was kind of
helpful. It's that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were like, yeah, I don't think that we would have done that again. We're like, yeah, okay, well, then we'll adjust that and move forward.
We're finding our way.
I would like to sing Kumbaya at the end of every one.
Holding hands. Well, guys, it's been a fantastic season 5, Kim, not season 6. Appreciate, Jared, you getting behind the mic as I was on my sabbatical and
happy to.
Joining me.
I just tried to channel you.
Magnify endeavor. We've never done this, I don't believe, on an episode of Magnify. But Joe, could I ask that you pray for our church?
I would be honored to. Yeah, let's do that.
As we're thinking about 2025 and all we've discussed, can you pray for the one anotherings, the neighboring, all of it? Yeah.
Sure. Our great God, creator of heaven and the earth, we are so humbled by the rich blessing that it is to be called among those who are at Grace Baptist Church, those who have been the recipients of your grace and have been called to this great citizenship of heaven that we get to live out in day-to-day life through the one another's that are expressed in our membership covenant, that are committed to pursuing your word and how it applies to every season and every detail of life. Lord, we also thank you too that you've called us to a community, you've called us to a people, that we are pursuant of you and our one main focus of that being Jesus and loving obedience to him, but we get to experience that not in isolation, but in relationships. So Lord, we thank you for the ways in which that you've not only have called us, but you've actually knit our hearts together through the work of the Spirit. And as we express that through the one another's, Lord, would you help our church to continue to move deep into what does it mean to express our oneness in Christ through the one another's in everyday moments and in our ministries and in our activities and in our neighboring. Lord, would you give us the rich opportunity to be able to experience that, the work of the Spirit, through those actions. And it would be our hope and our prayer that we do that in such a way that it is so compelling to a world that is isolated, to a world that is not reconciled to you, and certainly not to each other, that we can model in our neighborhoods and in our relationships that there is a God who has redeemed us and has reconciled us, and that is what we get to experience with one another. And we want to share and to invite all of those to come and to taste and to see that you are good. Lord, we want to ask that you would enrich the ministry here at Grace Baptist Church, not for our own sake, O Lord, but for your glory. Be all of it, for you are the one who is worthy, and we are so privileged and joyful to be able to experience it. So would you protect us in this way? Would you enrich us in this way? Would you motivate us in this way so that in the end, our collective heart's cry would be that you are good? So Lord, I pray that you would do these things. And Lord, as we do, we just want to ask too, which is great privilege, for the ways in which that you continue to unify our elders and our staff around these core principles so that they might, with real humility and love, to mobilize ministry that's effective towards that end. So we pray all these things now in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Guys, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Absolutely.
Love you guys.
Let's do something else we've never done here. Listener, if you're on the train, would you just put your arm around the person next to you and let's all sing A Friend's a Friend Forever.
Packing up the dreams God's planted in the fertile soil.
Oh boy,
of
here we
you.
go. Folks, thanks so much for streaming in for season 5. Hopefully, the next time you hear my voice, it will be in the year 2025 for season 6.
Because our hearts
Grace to you.
And a friend will not say never,
because the welcome will not end. Though it's hard to let you go,
in the Father's hands we go. Because
that
a
lifetime's
lifetime's not too long to live as friends.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure to subscribe to Magnify Podcast so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. We would love to hear from you, so if you have any questions you'd like to ask in our mailbag, you can email them to magnify@gracebaptist.org, and we will answer them on the show. Thank you so much for streaming.